Hi, Fabrice. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We are doing these quick Summit Series spotlight recordings to introduce some of our speakers for the summit and get attendees really excited for what they're going to learn about. So can you kick it off and just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your companies?
Sure.
Plural.
So Fabrice Grinda, French. I've been a tech founder for the last 26 years. I built many large companies. The large one was a company called OLX, the largest classified site in the world, which has over 11,000 employees in 30 countries and over 300 million users per month. And before that, I built another company that grew from 0 to 200 million in revenues in 4 years and profitable, and sold that. And for the last 10 years, I've been building and running a venture fund called FJ Labs, which invests in network effect companies and marketplaces, especially or including in crypto assets, so, where we have about 70 investments in private crypto companies. And we also have 10% of the fund dedicated to liquid crypto. In addition to that, we build companies, we incubate, or we have a little studio, and I'm executive chairman and co-founder of a company called Midas, which is a real-world asset tokenization company, which basically tokenizes T-bills and ultimately other types of securities.
You have to let us know how you managed to create more than 24 hours in a day. Sounds incredible, all that you're working
I'm
on.
actually really good at outsourcing and at context switching and being present. But I use a virtual assistant in the Philippines who manages my entire online agenda. I have a butler and a estate manager that manages my offline world. And in life, focus on the things you love to do and do nothing else. So everything else in my life is outsourced, and I could just do the things I love to do.
That is great advice. I love it. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the unique perspective that you're going to bring to the summit.
I think three unique perspectives. So I've been building and investing in Web2 startups for 26 years. And I think one of the things that's missing here is in the Web3 world has been bringing these Web2 user interface design sensibilities to the Web3 world and making sure that we're building easy to use consumer facing applications opposed to things that normies can use, basically. Number two, I'm through a SPAC that I created, adding to the long list of things I've been doing. I bought over 200 million in T-bills in a public listed fund, and as a result, I had to go and register the SEC multiple times and got a lot of insights on how to issue securities and think through modern regulation, which I guess brings me to that. I guess the last insight is because of what I'm building with the Midas. I have a real sense of how to build a real-world asset tokenization of T-bills, especially in a permissionless solution where we're KYCing and AMLing the users on the onboarding and or the on-ramp and the off-ramp, but we are an ERC20 token where people can actually then interact with DeFi without using KYC AML.
Love it. Three great conversations that I think will be pillars of the topics that we discuss at the summit. I like to just ask what's your prediction for the tokenization landscape and what we should expect in 2024?
So a few predictions. So one thing where people have been constantly wrong for the last few years on the macro side has been how high rates go and how long they stay high. So if I take you back 18 months ago, people thought that the Fed's funds rate would go at like 3.6%, and that changed in the FOMC meeting of September 22, where it was 4.6, and now of course rates are at 5.5%. And I'm taking Powell at his word, and I think rates will stay higher longer than we expect, and meaning they'll stay above 5%. So what I think will happen in the tokenization landscape is there's going to be a lot of pressure for Tether, Circle to replace the yield-free USDC USDT rate with the regulatory compliant tokenized T-bill with identical ERC20 functionalities. And what I think that entails is that the rates in DeFi, which are currently lower than the rates in the traditional world. So you can borrow on Common Ave at like 2.3% versus, you can make 5.5% in T-bills right now. Those will converge because of the arbitrage. and ultimately the DeFi rates are going to basically mirror the offline rates.
What do you think that will mean for Midas and some of the other companies that are focused on treasuries?
So obviously the arbitrage is an opportunity to enter and collect and get a lot of AUM early on, because right now you can earn with leverage 20% plus on your USDC or USD writ large. And obviously that will decrease, but it's okay. It's an market entry strategy. I guess I think I call it Midas, by the way, not Midas, Midas.app. And ultimately we'll add like AAA security bonds and other assets. And the spread between T-bills and bonds is going to increase over time. Eventually, the T-bill rates will go down. But it's more the fact that something like Midas exists will lead to the DeFi rates going up and the arbitrage going away. And that's totally okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting. Okay. And then what do you think is needed to accelerate the institutional adoption of tokenization?
So institutional adoption, I think, is going to come reasonably quickly in Europe because there is a regulatory framework for this. So to give you an example, Midas specifically, we are compliant with European securities law. We're BaFin compliant in Germany. We're issuing a security in Germany, compliant with European securities law. And so we are issuing a security token. That said, in the US right now, so meaning institutional investors will come in Europe, and in Europe right now, we're in conversations with a number of broker dealers and others to distribute the products through to institutional investors. In the US, obviously what's missing is regulatory clarity on crypto legislation. And when that will come, your guess is as good as mine. Gary has not been the most forthcoming or supportive of our endeavors. So we shall see. I do think there are regulatory solutions for real world asset tokenization in the US. I mean, one easy way, obviously, even though it doesn't allow for secondary transactions and DeFi, is to just do accredited investors in a closed loop system. It's more limited, but it works. So that's one thing. In the US, regulatory clarity, though, obviously it's going to start in Europe and where it's fine. The second thing, of course, is liquidity in the real world asset class. Today, we're starting to see issuances where there's not real liquidity. The TBLs are still pretty low, but eventually that will come, and that will bring institutional adoption.
Okay. And then the last one is kind of a fun one. And we want to ask this because we want people that you meet at the summit to come up to you and try to guess. So can you tell us 2 truths and a lie?
Okay. I mined BTC in the early 2010s. I sold all of my liquid crypto holdings between November 2021 and January 2022, and I was not affected by the UST collapse.
All right. These are good. You're giving me something to think about for the next few weeks. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Fabrice. Thank you for sharing a little bit about your background, and we look forward to hearing from you and meeting you at the summit.
Perfect. Thank you for having me.